Now, today there's to be a meeting of leading health professionals with the all-party parliamentary group on obesity. They're expected to tell MPs and peers that GPs are denied the resources they need to tackle the condition. Well, it's been a somewhat alarming week for those of us who fall among the growing group categorised as obese. The term applies if your waist size is more than 37 for a woman or 40 for a man, or if your body mass index or BMI is more than 30. Last week, Ipswich Primary Care Trust announced that anyone with a BMI above 30 would not be eligible for hip or knee surgery because of the pressure placed on joints by being overweight. Well, in a moment we'll be discussing the politics of being fat, but we asked people in the street to tell us what they think obese means.
Big, someone sort of about 20 stone, 22 stone, something like that.
If you ask me what obesity was, I think it's extremely overweight.
Massive, 20 stone.
Yeah, 20-something stone.
Dangerously overweight.
Somebody that's about 16 to 18, personally.
When people are severely overweight, unnecessarily overweight because they don't exercise or they eat the wrong foods.
I've been described as being clinically obese when I was 12.5 stone. I'm now about 12 stone. I just don't feel obese.
I don't know, fat people, I suppose. Take a look at me. I mean, I don't know.
Do you think of yourself then as obese?
Medically, I suppose I am, yeah, medically. I don't think I am, though. I'm fairly fit and healthy. You know, I swim, I run. I do 50 lengths in the morning. I'm a really fit person, but because I weigh the way I weigh, which is about 15 stone, people would probably look at me and go, yeah, she's definitely obese, but I'm a really fit person.
Well, earlier this morning I spoke to Professor Susie Orbach, who specialises in eating problems, Fatima Parker, President of the UK branch of the International Size Acceptance Association, and Dr Howard Stoate. He chairs the all-party group on obesity, is Labour MP for Dartford, and still practices as a GP. How would he define obesity?
Well, there is a medical definition which is really based on statistics and how it affects people's health. So a rule of thumb, I think, for listeners is that a man with a waist of more than 40 inches or a woman with a waist of more than 37 inches certainly would need to, I think, be classified as certainly overweight and probably obese. And I think someone in that situation ought really to be having a talk to their practice GP or their practice nurse to see what action they need to take.
But why is it of such concern to government?
Well, the main reason is because of the enormous burden of ill health. Obesity can shorten life by 9 years. It causes a great increase in diabetes, in heart disease, in raised blood pressure, in raised cholesterol, an increase in cancers, an increase in strokes, and a lot of misery. I mean, the people on your Vox Pop certainly seem fit and healthy at the moment, but in 5 or 10 years' time they may not be. And the important thing about obesity is to prevent the chronic long-term effects which can so damage people's lives and upset them.
And why is it believed that putting more resources into primary care would help its treatment?
Well, the purpose of the new GP contract, which was brought in last year, was so that GPs could prevent and manage chronic long-term illnesses before they led to real misery and problems. And the point about it is to try and prevent and detect obesity before it becomes a clinical problem. So if, for example, a GP is doing a routine health check on somebody and notices that they have a high body mass index or a large waist circumference, they will say to that person, look, this obesity is going to affect your health sooner or later. You are running risks of chronic illness. It will be far better to take action now before it becomes a problem rather than wait until you already have diabetes or high blood pressure or a heart attack. So that's really what GPs are doing. They're trying to prevent chronic ill health.
Fatima, what relationship do you see between the size that people are and government funding for this kind of healthcare?
I think if there was funding to be acquired, it would be to educate people. It's especially doctors, because the advice the doctors been giving, I've been hearing it now for 40 years, and my weight has not been going any down. It's going up and up and up, and I've been trying to take their advice since the age of 15. I was diagnosed of dying before 50 because my weight wasn't the right for my size or for my age. But from what I discovered from my own experience, not our association, is that advice is not 100% right. Because instead of stressing on somebody's weight, you have to stress on the way they live, how they live, their lifestyle, the kind of nutrition they take in and exercise. Because you can be fat and fit.
But you do accept what Howard says about the dangers of obesity, that it does lead to very dangerous consequences.
The dangers of sedentary lifestyle and unhealthy eating habits. That is the most important, because if you have diabetes, if you have high blood pressure, if you have any of the other illnesses that the doctor has talked about, you are not only fat, you can be thin and have these diseases. So if we're going to get fat people to lose weight to prevent these diseases, what are we going to do about the thin people?
Susie, is it a cost-related problem for you?
I think there are cost-related issues, but not around obesity. I think around the whole issue of our troubled eating, the kind of level of mental anguish. We don't even factor in the mental health issues that go with all sorts of eating problems, which don't express themselves as obesity. Also, I think we don't look at the epidemiological studies that show that underweight is a severe health problem. Those are kind of written out of the literature. But what worries me about this new proposal is that it really is absolutely nuts, this new BMI. Brad Pitt is not overweight. Russell Crowe is not obese. To measure somebody's waist and then their weight is simply not an adequate measure of any kind of risk factor at all. The issue about fitness, I think, has been won, and this feels like a very retrograde step to simply go around measuring people as though that in itself gives us any information or gives them any health benefit whatsoever.
Is it true, Howard, that the BMI is not that Russell Crowe or Brad Pitt would be obese in that form of measurement?
At the beginning, I made it very clear that BMI is only really one part of the argument, and that's why waist circumference is often considered to be a better result. But the statistics are very clear. Someone who is clinically obese, a BMI of over 30, or a man with a waist over 40, has 30 times the risk of getting diabetes. It's not a question of getting the statistics wrong. It's a question of a wake-up call. And what GPs are trying to do is to prevent people getting to that position. Of course, we mustn't ignore the wider issues of exercise and healthy eating and healthy living. Of course, that's absolutely crucial. Which is why we need far more resources in primary care, so that when a GP says to a person, look, you are heading for diabetes, you are heading for high blood pressure, wouldn't it be better to take action now? And if I have the resources as a GP to put someone into a fitness programme or a weight reduction programme or a healthy eating programme, that's got to be better for them in the long run.
But can you not have a waist size of 37 inches and be perfectly fit?
Yes, you probably can. That's why I'm saying statistics are the point. It's not a question of an individual relationship. I can't say that everybody who's obese will get diabetes. What I can say to them is they're 30 times more likely to get diabetes, in the same way that someone who smokes isn't necessarily going to get lung cancer, but they're certainly at a much higher risk of getting it. It's not being too prescriptive, it's being able to give choices to people which currently aren't available.
Susie, doesn't that make sense, that your GP could say, I will actually send you on a fitness course?
I think it's an absolutely lovely idea. I just wish it worked, because the main component of those courses, however well designed they are, is about changing your lifestyle, but not addressing why you are in the position you are in the first place. So, look, 97% of diets fail. Most exercise programs aren't sustainable. Now, it's not because people are stupid. It's because there are other factors that need to be addressed, which I don't think are on the radar of either the government or of this new idea. There are many, many factors in our culture. Dieting is actually one of the factors that predisposes you to obesity now, because of how it mucks up your set point. Yes. So I don't actually think simply rolling out a program of the conventional ideas and putting them all together is going to do anything. I think it's actually going to hurt people, because it will look as though it's offering them something, and they will feel another failure all over again.
Howard, it is true, isn't it, that we've been woefully inadequate in offering any kind of proper psychological support for eating disorders?
Yes, I entirely agree with that, and that's why we do need to do something quite radical. And I entirely agree with the other two contributors that simply sending someone on a course of exercise or simply sending them to a dietitian isn't going to work. What we do need to do is to put the resources in to develop really effective strategies.
What worries me is we're not having the right kind of conversation about how body preoccupations, how eating when you're not hungry, how these things occur and what we're supposed to do about it. There isn't anybody I know who doesn't know that you shouldn't, and from any class background, who doesn't know about the kinds of fats that are lousy for you, the fact that you ought to be moving. So that isn't the way to address it, surely.
Well, I think it probably is, because although many people know they're obese, they don't necessarily know what to do about it. I mean, smokers, for example, know they smoke, but many of them need a lot of help to get them off the habit. And what we need to do, I think, is to look at obesity as a much wider issue than simply weight.
Fatima?
I think I can't see anything new in what the doctor proposes. When you are obese, you don't need a doctor to tell you. You hear it everywhere. You see it on every billboard. You see it on television. You see it in magazines. You are insulted. You are berated. You are ridiculed. And what has that got to do with health? What has it got to do with health? That destroys people's lives and psychology. The whole environment. It is a life sentence to be fat. And then to add all these programs without really giving anything concrete or anything new that would promise that maybe I would lose weight.
Howard, how concerned are you that particularly women who we know find it more difficult than anybody else to lose weight will be put off going to their GP at all if they feel every time they walk through the door they're going to be called obese?
Well, I don't think many GPs would behave like that at all. I think most GPs would see somebody with an incipient health problem, with a health problem waiting to happen, and say to them, look, we really have got to look at the way your weight is, what we can try and do to help you.
Fatima, do you prefer to be called obese or fat?
I think fat, because I have more fat cells than you and Susie. I am not ashamed of being called fat. I mean, it is the way my body is. It doesn't mean that my identity is lazy and this and that and all the myths that people call fat people fat for. And being fat as well, I can be healthy, I can be beautiful, I can be nice, I can be productive in society. And I want to be reminded every time I go. So many fat people do not go to the GP because they get lectured every time. And not lectured nicely either. They get bullied. So there is a lack of communication, and we need to reprogram the relationship and the psychology of the way that doctors deal with their fat patients.
I was talking to Fatima Parker, Professor Susie Orbach and Dr. Howard Stoate.